Look, just a general update for people. The biggest news that you've probably seen was we got a major sponsor announced. A lot of good work by George there, and what it means for the race pretty much is, Jamie, can you, sorry, turn the camera off, mate. So what it means for the race, it's gonna provide financial stability, and it's going to mean we can actually afford to do an awful lot of stuff for you guys, which is good. We're ramping up on the media. It's been a bit quiet over summer, but we are going to ramp up the media. One of the things is we need your stories. We need you guys to actually send us content. It's very, very hard from our end to create content, and you've got such fantastic stories. So yeah, keep them coming in. We set up a site on our website. There's now a key dates page. That'll give you the indication of some of the social dates and social aspects in the lead up and also after the race. We've done a lot of work behind the scenes and building a new website. We know that the old website's pretty ordinary, but it was provided for free. But we're actually going to have a much more professional website very soon. The other thing we're doing is we're putting together a closed Facebook chat forum effectively, so people can discuss things with each other, and I think you'll find that's pretty interesting and pretty useful as well. Sorry, I am going to keep people muted if that's all right. Otherwise, I can't actually. We get a lot of noise coming through. So look, logistics, if you're thinking about shipping a yacht home, it's not something that us as essential organisers are going to organise for you, but a couple of the competitors like Matt Lawrence from Jazz Player are looking at maybe collaborating with a few other boat owners and getting a much a much cheaper deal. So look, if you need his contact details, we're more than happy to provide them, but shipping your boat home is going to be something you guys are going to have to organise. You would have seen, hopefully, in the newsletter, Golden Week in Japan. It's when they have all their holidays. And that's going to coincide with when all your families are probably going to want to see you. It's about when you finish, and it's about that week that we start doing the presentations and things. So timing's not great, but what it does mean is the accommodation books out pretty quickly, and you really want to get onto that. We can confirm there will be a container provided by the race. We'll work out the details closer. It's a container, so space may be a bit limited, but we'll work out that sort of thing. But you can rely on the fact there'll be a container, so you can put some cruising gear and things like that on it. Insurance, obviously you need insurance for the event. It's one of the notice of race requirements. There won't be a centrally organised insurance. Okay, we've looked into it. It's just too hard from our perspective, but we can certainly provide some options and forward details of Pantaneous and others that do the insurance. And if you've got some problems, that's a great question for your mentor. Mentor can provide feedback to ourselves. We're going to have trackers for the race. Return delivery, we're not sure yet. It depends which trackers we use. We're either going to be using the ICB trackers, in which case we can probably use them for the way home, or we'll be hiring yellow brick ones, which are quite expensive and they may be more limited. So we can't tell you whether you'll have them for the return home yet. We're going to obviously try so you can. Anyone in Melbourne or thinking about going to Melbourne soon, we're going to have a 1 year to go barbecue, and that's going to be a run at Sandringham in the off the beach area. It's an informal barbecue. At this stage, it's a BYO everything. It's more of a social event than anything else. But try and set aside the date. It'll be a fun day. Sandringham's a great venue, and yeah, it would be good just to chat to each other. It'd be fantastic. The virtual race is going again, so that's the Sail Online Virtual Melbourne to Osaka. It starts on the 2nd of April. Now, it's a bit of fun, obviously, but it's a fantastic way to try and get your head around the race and how painful those doldrums are. I did it last year, didn't do too flash, but it was a bit of fun. The website has a page that explains how to actually do that. You already know probably that the final payment's due by June. In the newsletter that we sent out this morning or yesterday, we put in the payment details, the bank account details and things. The key one is we need to know the boat that's paid, so always put that in your details. I don't know if we've got Simon online, so I might just plug forward and get onto the major topic of the night. There are new sailing regulations, and they apply for July onwards. They're electronic, and there's a hot link on the website, on the event website for that, and that will tell you what you require for the various categories. Cat 1 is our race, it's a 1+. HF radio is a requirement, there's no change there. There are discussions within Australian Sailing about the needs for HF. We are bound by Australian Sailing, so therefore we are reactive to what they think, but there's some discussions behind the scenes around HF. We've listened to people's concerns about the cost, but sometimes it's out of our discretion. There's a national audit scheme for safety audits. ORCV website has contact details for auditors. If not, contact the office and Mantis can send you the details. We did promise as draft SIs. They're not far away. They're just being polished at the moment, so we should have them up in the next week or so. We did actually have an interesting one. We do talk to you, and Julie's been chatting to you about some of your concerns. One of them was the use of the drone by, I think it's Cartouche, on one of the recent ocean races. It was a bit of fun at the time, and they got some footage which was fantastic from media, but the concern was about outside assistance and observing competitors, which is an interesting one. We didn't think about that, but we are now actually thinking about it, and we'll come back to you on that one. Right, so the fun bit for tonight. We've got Blake Anderson from Dolyes Sails. Now, Blake manages Dolyes Melbourne. He's with me tonight. He's been sail making for 11 years, and he's been prepared. He actually helped with this with Cole. They helped prepare the sails for Catabara 8 in the 2013 race. So Blake, he's sailed everywhere. Most people in Melbourne know him. He sailed all types of keel boats. He's done heaps of offshore racing, including 6 Sydney and Hobarts. So he's got a great feel about long-distance offshore racing and what's needed. And we really do thank Blake for his time. There's Blake's contact details. They're very easy to find, Blake in Melbourne, at doyleaustralia.com. And I'm going to hand over to Blake now, and he's going to run with it from now. And if you do have questions, either park them, we'll get to the end, or type them into the chat system in your go-to meeting. So, Blake, welcome tonight. Thanks for coming.
Thank you, Martin. I'll get straight into it. Martin asked me a couple of weeks ago to take over for Paul Roberts, who wasn't available for the talk tonight. So he mentioned that one of the key things that helped him with his Osaka trip was a bit of help and assistance from his sailmakers and those involved with the boat to get it going and what he needed, and more importantly, just a bit of direction, so there wasn't too many words coming from outside, and just really had a good one single person just to really lead him towards, or lead him and Paul towards where they wanted to go and what they wanted to have on the boat. I just want to go through just a few things. The main key objectives, for example, we're talking about budget, skill level, and also just all round keep it simple and make sure we get through this race. The must-haves, what we really do need on a boat to get there. The should-haves, the things that I'm going to suggest to you that may not help those with the budget that doesn't extend past just the basic wardrobe. And also just your luff systems and hardware, which is just as simple as how we're going to connect those sails onto the rig, and also how we set them up along the boat. Those with bigger boats, we're going to have to be a little bit more detailed in what that is. Those with smaller boats have a little less options as far as where things get fitted on the bow. The key objectives we got, we obviously want to get there. We want to make sure the sails get there. We know that we're going to have a big range of wind the whole way through, whether it is light or it is extremely heavy. We all know what happened the first time round, or this time round, sorry, and we had a fair bit of breeze off the start and a lot of pull-outs and blown out mainsails. So we really do just want to get there and make sure that we don't pull out even halfway through. Performance is obviously important. Those with less of a budget, we can talk about still getting a good performance, but making sure you get that longevity and that reliable and durable sail. We want to make sure they're easy to handle and easy to trim. That's just really as far as ocean racing goes. Unfortunately, we do have to make things a bit heavier than normal, but we do try and make them as light as possible where we can, just so that it's a bit easier for those sailing, that they don't need to pull any shoulders or have any back injuries halfway through the race. So we do our best. Straight into mainsails. I've I have put a picture on the side there that you guys, everybody can have a look at. I got it off a Class 40 that we did some sales for overseas. So straight into, as far as material and constructions go, your key construction materials are, you've got your Dacrons, you've got your polyester laminates and radial laminates, and then you go straight into your Stratus, your 3DI, no longer available 3DL, and a couple of other companies have their own. It's really based on budget. You know, we work with what we can. I can't stress the importance of just making sure that it's durable. Even if you are going for one of those lighter weight membranes, like your Stratus, we still make sure that the owner does look towards getting taffetas on both sides, or even at least one side, just to make sure that for any flogging fatigue that you're going to have through the race, which we all know happens as soon as you start reefing, things start to shake, and every time that happens, you're just adding more fatigue to that sail and lessening the likelihood of it getting to the end. So we want to make sure that we've got as much in that material construction as possible. Just as some basics, Dacron, as far as Dacron goes, it's a slightly heavier product. It has to be heavier so that it holds its shape as well as the other products. Over an ocean race like you guys are doing, it's really not a huge issue with the shape if your budget doesn't suit, because you're able to have a product that lasts, so that overrides that issue. The good basic mid-range for all sailors is your radial products, whether that be polyester radial or Kevlar radial or even carbon radial. They all have their own surfaces to suit offshore sailing, and your local sail maker can guide you as far as what your boat will need and the weights. And obviously the Stratus has and your 3DIs have a superior construction, which gives you the ability to put fibres where they need to be and lighten the sail all round where you're able to. Especially when it comes to reefing scenarios, the best sail out of the three is a membrane product, a laid membrane product, because you're able to actually have strengthening between reefs. Your tri-radial sails are more likely to lose its shape and have damage when you reef, because they actually don't have the fibre layout like a Stratus or a 3DI will have, and that's mainly just because the orientation of the cloth is set up to your full-size sail. So it's something to consider as far as construction of a sail. Your Dacron and your laid membranes are actually the optimum, and your radials are actually a little less. It's important to think about your reefs and how many you do have. Something I was speaking to Martin earlier about is there is new special regs that we are actually allowed to just have a mainsail and no longer need a trysail as long as you have a 50% reefable main. I do suggest against it. It's an important sail to have on the boat, but if you are thinking about your new sails and what you're going to do, it is important to remember that is a possibility if you want to do so.
So that would be a larger second reef.
Yeah, so the normal, for most boats, most of you on the entry list are around that 40-foot range or plus. You know, if you've got your 7 battens, you'll always have a reef just below each of your main lower battens, and we like to set it up that way so it keeps a nice stiff leach. So what we found, I've actually just done a new main for a new sail for Jazz Player with this 50% reefable sail because it suits what he wants to do. And what we ended up doing was pretty much raising their reef from our standard, 55, 56% reef to about 48. So really reducing, or vice versa, sorry, lifting it up about a metre. So it wasn't a huge difference, but it just meant that if he does any racing in between, he is legal without having a trysail. As far as battens go, we suggest through battens for most boats. If you're really looking to be able to get through this race and more afterwards, the through battens will help. For those looking for a better performance out of the sail, we suggest doing through battens at least for the top 3 or the top 2, similar to what we did on Catabara, and then just doing some longer battens on the leach so that it just has a bit more control on the leach of the sail and not too much flutter. Those bigger boats, we also throw in a few flutter battens, which just really helps with that leach flutter when you're reefing or in heavy weather sailing. So the other thing that I wanted to talk about was the spare sail. A lot of people ask me what to do. I know there's a couple of boats within mast furlers. It's really important to consider the fact that you may not have that sail at one point or another because you won't be able to furl it. I don't want to put a mozzie on you, but it is the way it is. So it's important to remember, yes, you can carry a spare sail. It can be light and it can be heavy. So you need to make that decision. And that I would advise you to speak to your sailmaker just about what sort of sail you have and whether it's worth testing or trying your luck with what you've got and going a light air drifting mainsail, or whether you want to have a spare mainsail like what might be your delivery sail back. As far as the luff cast systems go, we really stress the importance of having a fitted system onto the luff of the sail so that you don't have to worry about pulling the sail out of the track. Anything that connects the sail to the mast with strengthening is important. We understand budget isn't something that is really important as well. I know I just went through the process with a 40-footer going from a bolt rope system to a luff track system, much like the Ronstown one on the right of the screen. That probably costs the best part of $20,000, $15,000 to $20,000 to fit that to a carbon mast. So it is something to factor in. It is a hell of a lot easier than what you're used to if you just have a bolt rope. It gives a lot more strength to the top parts of the sail and at the reef points. When you are reefed, there's a lot of load on that bolt rope and a lot of risk if you ever do pull that leech on too quickly before you've got any luff tension. So it's important to have something that really holds to the mast.
With a car system, I guess you'd have to look at the trisol arrangement as well.
Yeah, so what a lot of the products we are able to get is they actually have track systems that there is an entry to the track above your cars. The hard part of that is obviously that if you've got a pretty big mainsail, you're going to be having to go up the mast a fair bit. And Caddy's biggest problem was that. So stacker height's something to consider. We've reduced the cars on the current mainsails we're doing for the boats doing Osaka, and it's reduced it by at least 3 or 4 cars, and it's really just getting the right cars on the sail. You don't want to go to minimums, but you at least want to have the correct intermediate cars and high load cars so you're not going overboard. Okay. So there are some other cars you saw there, the slides and simple systems that you can use, but they're a lot more basic than what they are, but it is still a good budget option. I used them on Halcyon for the Sydney to Hobart, and they're still going after 5 years. So there are some cheaper options if those need it that will still fit in your standard track system, that you don't need to go to the extra cash to get the bigger stuff. So as far as the headsails go, it's a similar situation to your mainsail as far as materials and construction. There's not too many different things. I suggest the same things. Try radials for heavy weather sails are probably even better than your laid membranes, just because they're a seriously robust sail, and as far as expenses go, it's probably not worth going the extra when you can have a pretty good pro radial sail. Something to consider is obviously the luff system. We really, pretty much everybody we've made sails for a Melbourne Osaka race have gone from a foil and straight to Hanks. Yep. It is the cheapest option as far as it goes. There are your typical roller furling sails, and also having just single stay sails on a furler where the stay is within the sail. They all have their limitations, and the Hanks are just so easy to take on and off. I think as far as going the next level, you're spending a lot more money to get there, and I think Hanks are a very simple way for most of you to just get a simple system that you can leave it on the bow if you need to, and have a kip when you're tired. So all the other systems really rely on a lot more mechanics, and that's probably the only downside to them. But obviously with the bigger boats like Allegro and some of the others, they've got staysails and whatnot that actually will be set up as a furling sail and stay up the whole race, so which is absolutely fine. Just when you are considering it, anything over 40 feet, you really need to look at halyard locks and 2-to-1 halyards to make sure that they stay tight, because that's the key. Otherwise, you do get a lot of forestay sag on either sail, depending on which ones they are. It doesn't really matter.
Chafing too.
Chafing's a big thing, yeah. You're having to tack sails around, which means you do have to fill them before you tack or jibe. It's pretty important to really factor that in. Most boats will have a lot of separation Anybody over 60 feet will have a lot of separation between those two, the staysail and the foresail, but it's not, yeah. So batten's simple thing, vertical battens for anyone with any furling sails. The range of sails I'll go through, there's a little list at the end. We really just want to make sure that you've got the right amount of sails, not too heavy, not too light on, and also the fact that we want to make sure people think about, you can have reefs in these sails, so maybe your number 3 and your number 4 can be the same sail, just reef it in and you've got a nice little kit there and you're not having to manhandle too many extra sails.
Avoid a sail change.
Yeah. Spinnakers, you've got a pretty big range to choose from, but to be honest, as far as offshore goes, you can't fail the good old nylon. It's pretty simple. Anything to do with reaching, you want a heavier weight cloth. Anything to do with running, you can have a slightly lighter cloth because you're getting better VMG and getting that true wind speed down, or the apparent wind speed, sorry, down. I don't suggest to a lot of you to have laminate sails when it comes to the reaching sails. The A3s and A5s, your heavy weather reaching sails, they can have a tendency to blow up. So if you're not sure of your skill level as far as setting those sails, it's probably in your better interest to get something of a heavier nylon. Go to a 2.5 ounce nylon rather than a 1.8 ounce laminate. And it's really just the flogging and fatigue if you do have one person sailing. Retrieval and stowage, I've got a couple of pictures in the next slide just to talk about the two options that I would suggest to anyone doing a race. Range of sails, it's really just a case of having at least 2 runners on the boat. You're going to need a masthead runner and a chicken runner, whether it's a symmetrical or an assy, it's still important to have. And really think about which reaching sails you do take, because those that are doing IRC have got their limited amount of sails that they're allowed. So it's key to just really speak to your sailmaker about the type of boat you have, where you're going to go, and what you think your budget can really take. Because there's a lot of ways with spinnakers that you can reduce how many you actually need by just picking the right type. So a lot of people ask me what to do as far as with assis go. They've now got so many different systems. You can see on the right there we've got the 2 different types of furling units. We've got a top down and just a standard furling unit. I suggest with everybody that comes to me to use any runner that you've got, especially symmetricals and A2s, you should use a sock. This is just because I've found too many times where people have got runners and it doesn't feel correctly, and the biggest problem is really just getting it out the next time they use it. So there are a lot of chances to make mistakes with those top-down furlers if you don't do it correctly, and it just eliminates that issue. The reaches are fine. Most of them have the torque cable within the luff of the sail, so it fills up perfectly, and it really is a good way to set a sail up before you have to deploy. It's all about keeping it simple and making sure that you can get it down easily and hoist it easily. And the best thing about furling units, especially with your code zeros and your reaching sails, is you put a Velcro on there and you can have it sitting up there and not worry about it opening up. There are a couple of easy ways to get your snuffer to work, your spinnaker sock. I always put a block at the base, a snatch block, so that I can run the retrieval line through it, so you can actually pull against something at the deck level, rather than how the lovely lady's trying to pull it in that picture. It's that's how people fall overboard. So it's all about keeping it safe. So I normally just plant 2 feet on the edge of the gunnel and go hell for leather through a block, and that really simplifies things. So
we've got a question here from Peter. What about martin breakers in terms of, I guess that's for an assy more so than anything else?
Yeah, I think they're a big winner. You need to really get someone that knows about it to do it. When hoisting, you've really got to make sure you keep clear of them. But they're a dead set winner as far as firing the tack goes. I really think, as far as what we're talking about here, that it's important to have the martin breakers for assy boats, but it's more important to have these other systems to take it down and cover this
so
up.
maybe market breakers.
So you can have a market breaker
yeah.
as a get out of jail free card, but
Yep.
to be honest, if you have that sock, you don't actually need it.
Yep.
Need it on there. So make sure your market breaker is nice and long. The last thing you need is to have the thing going when it's not even halfway down the boat. You want to pretty much have it so that your tack fires when it's about at mast or at middle of J, so that you've got at least 3 or 4 metres back before it fires, and it's just so that you've got a chance to get on the boat and do it. There are other options with your snuffers as well to put velcros or zips on the tacks of your sails. I strongly suggest the velcros just because they're a lot easier to undo if there is a failure. If you forget to crack the zip on these new zip systems, it can be all bad. But the velcros are very simple to use, and it just holds the tack in when it's in the sock, and it just stops the tack from floating open. So it's very simple. There's just a couple of pictures of that top-down system that I talked about. The way they work, the head spins in first, the tack's got a little strop at the bottom so it spins around freely. And then once the sail starts to take load, that's what fills the sail around the foil, or the cable, sorry. So what you need to understand is the tighter it gets, the better it fills, which means the harder it is to pull out. So it's very hard to manage and it's hard to check. Anything over 20 knots on a smaller boat, it's really hard to manage. So I do strongly suggest any of those running things, you take a good look at the sock option. They are quite a lot cheaper as well. So as far as storm sails go, really important. They aren't for looks. They aren't just for looks, and they're not just to qualify. You've got to make sure they're well cut, because there is a time where you're going to need them and you might be using them for a long time. So you don't want to have a bagged out thing that you've had for 10 years and you think it'll be okay. Make sure you've got a good up-to-date storm sail just to get you there. As I said, there's plenty of places you can set it. Those with the in-mast furlers, we're going to have to consider putting tracks on the side. Obviously, you can't exactly put it around your mast, so you want to have something like that. The staysails and whatnot your storm jibs can be used as staysails, so you want to maybe think about those bigger boats probably already have them, but you can set them just as a Genoa staysail essentially. What may happen there is you will have a larger storm jib because of that, or a maximum size storm jib. Maybe consider, much like the guys on Jazz Player have, they've actually got a slightly smaller one for that really heavy wind stuff. So they're not very heavy they're not very heavy sails, so you can do a slightly smaller one and not be risking the weight factor, and definitely worth having. So a lot of the questions are about how you can actually get your storm jib over your furler. These are good systems, but they are tricky. You've got to get your system in place. Do it in some wind, as always. Make sure you're doing the things that you're going to be doing when it's windy, when it is windy. There's no point doing it in 5 knots and checking it works. You can get your system right before you check it in the wind though. A little suggestion, if you do have one of these, take one of your sheets off, only furl one around the sail, get as many wraps as possible. I normally do about 6 or 7. Bring the sheet down to the base of the sail and use a bit of bungee just to keep it tight around the base of the sail, and then you can set this system up, which is just obviously, as you can see, just the simple hanks over and around the sail. And these are a pretty generic product. You can buy them from ATN, or your local sail makers have the same availability to buy them, but definitely speak to your sail maker if you do have a furling unit of your options. So onto the ones that people with more of a budget and want to get that extra edge on the rest of the competitors. You do have to remember that there are limits to how many spinnakers you can have. So make sure that any spinnakers that you do have on the boat currently, if you are going to do AMS and IRC, do measure. We need to make sure that the mid-girth is over 75% of foot, or else they will not be legal for what you're doing. So those that do have code zeros, or thinking about code zeros, you need to have a good think about what rating systems you do want to sail under, because that's the key to what type of zero you end up with. As far as jib tops go, I think they're probably one of the more important should-haves. I know Martin was pretty glad to have his. It is just an easier sail to set. It's a really good sail to have when it's blowing. Anything over 20 knots, that with a Genoa staysail or even without is just a fantastic sail to balance the boat and just keep you going without having too much of a worry. Don't try and jibe them too often. They don't really like that. The battens are a lot longer on them. What we have done now is, you'll see in this picture, we've actually got the one on the right's actually a bowsprit jib top, which we've been doing a lot of development on. You've probably seen a few pictures of the Maverick 49. The guys over doing the Infinity 46. Sorry, that's got the big bro out the front, blast reaching. These are just to get light in the helm a bit. You've got the same area as a headsail, and it just means that you can put another thing on a furler, which is really important as far as ocean racing goes. If we can have something out there and deploy it with ease and hoist with ease, it's the key to it.
What's the size of a jib top is one of the questions that's come through. It's a 2, isn't it?
No, it's maximum area,
okay.
Especially with the ones we're doing now. We don't have any battens. We lift the clue up a bit and put a bit of hollow in, so we can go to maximum area. Essentially, whatever you're doing, you just want to make sure that you're getting a standard overlap of what your number 1 or number 2 would have. If you've got a Genoa boat, it will just have a much higher clue than what you've got as your current number 1. And the weight of it will be about the same as a number 2 or a number 3. They've got a lot less load in them because you're reaching, so we can take some a little bit of few corners there as far as the weight goes. It's my little daughter in the background.
That's all right. No, it's fine. We're all good.
So as I said, I just wanted to give you guys an idea of guys and girls an idea about what we've got on some standard ASSI boats. Obviously the symmetrical boats. The only thing that's really different is those 3 spinnakers on the right just get to go a little bit further to the right as far as their bubble can carry, and maybe a little less to the left.
Maybe we'll put this image up on the website.
Yeah. It just gives you an idea, just a starting point. So what I pretty much do with most of the people doing the Osaka is I say this is what a normal offshore boat will do. Where are we going to take shortcuts? So most of the boats will carry their J1 and J2 as the same sail and just call it an AP J1. Your J3 and J4, I think the most important sail out of this whole list is your J3. It is going to be your most used sail in anything over 18 knots. It's pretty much your 18 to 25 knot sail. So you're pretty much going from a J1 to a J3 as far as this chart is concerned. Most of the boats I'm suggesting to put a reef in your J4, so it's a J5. As far as storm jibs go, they've got a pretty wide range because, as we all know, it's just blowing, so we're just going to heap it up. But it's important to have a look at that one at the very bottom. Everybody needs a drifter. You're going to do it. You might not want to do it, but you're going to do it.
If you're IRC on a fairly big boat, do you think symmetric or just go ASSI?
It really depends on the boat. If you've got a heavy displacement hull, a Sydney 47 or along those first 40, first 45 lines, especially the bigger cruisers, I think your biggest gains are going to be symmetrical. So your advantage is that you do not go any faster with an ASSI. You're going to hit boat speed with the symmetrical, and you're going to sail straight to where you want to go. You can always carry one ASSI. I normally suggest those with symmetrical setups to have, if they've got 4 in their inventory, to go with 3 symmetricals and 1 ASSI. But it is also worth considering the extra point penalty to add 2 ASSIs to the list so that you can carry a chicken ASSI or an A5 and maybe a code 0. So
when the wind kicks in, we pulled out a head sort of fair bit on caddy because we had a pole.
Yeah, it is the safest option, and it's surprising to some, but I've won races in the bay with a pulled out headsail. It just gets you there safely, and you can sail amazingly deep. So just to touch on a few things. Lastly, as far as reefing with the Luffcast system, if you do have it, you're going to need some lazy jacks. I made Paul and Martin a really nice mesh lazy jack bag. They're so simple, the water drains from it, and water is really your biggest issue as far as when you have sails reefed on the boom. You want to make sure that it can
it's handy actually for water collection. We collected a bit of water in that bag, so it's good.
I wouldn't be drinking
fresh water.
I hope it was.
It's a shower there.
As far as the headsails go, as I said, there's a few options there. Look at the Hank system as the best budget option. Obviously, some will have an opportunity after this to do a bit of cruising, so it may be preferable to have a furling unit. I think the foil is one of those ones that you kind of you may as well. We tried it now. Something I should mention: a lot of the people that pulled out from my list of clients that had older sails that moved to Hanks, make sure that you put enough reinforcing on those. There was a couple that got done. I won't use any names, so it's not because it's not worth it. But those. Sometimes you need to make sure that the reinforcing is there, and if you do get it done, make sure whoever does it puts reinforcing in, because a lot of people had their luffs rip off the fourth day. So as far as the spinning retrieval system goes, just have a look at it. As I said, A2s, runners, make sure they're on socks. And
just on that, you have to be able to get these things down by yourself, right? Yeah. So it's not two-handed, it's actually single-handed.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And that's it's. I'd love to do a video to show. Well, I may do it one day just to send it to Martin of how I do set up that ATN system, because it's a really simple system just to get the sail down, and you don't have to have anyone else helping. So
all right. So we're a little bit over time. We'll take a few questions. I'll unmute. This could be chaotic here. I do have one question. What is a Martin breaker? Good question. Sorry, we assume knowledge. It's a little clip. It's a little clip that you put onto a loop on your tack clip. Effectively, it opens the loop. It opens the tack, and it does it by pulling down effectively on a bit of string, which opens up the clip. So what happens? You put up a assy. It's on a tack. It's all good. You go forward. You put the little Martin breaker clip on, and then you go back to the cockpit. And when you ease the tack, it effectively unclips the tack. So yeah, hopefully that's a clear explanation. Any other questions? I'm going to unmute. Hang on. I'll turn everyone on, which could get very noisy all of a sudden. Only unmute yourself if you actually have a question. George is going to have comments. That's fine. Any questions? Okay, it sounds pretty comprehensive. And Blake, thank you for your time. Yeah. Thank you so much for your time tonight and giving up your time and your house. That's another story. I'm going to Ian. George Shaw. Do you want to unmute yourself and jump in?
Am I unmuted now?
You are.
Hello.
Yep. Go ahead.
Martin, Martin, you would expect me to come up with some sort of a comment after today. I'd like to say and offer something that hasn't been discussed at the committee meeting or even the board, and I would like to make an offer, and I will make sure it is redeemable, that the first boat to pay the balance of the entry fees will get a very special prize. I'll make sure it happens. And secondly, you mentioned the sale online. I'm going to find a very special prize for the winner of the sale online competition. Fantastic. How's that?
Fantastic. There's some good incentive. All right. Excellent. Thanks, George. Thank you, everybody. We'll wrap this up now. Appreciate your time. We will put the video on the system. Blake is obviously more than happy to chat outside of this and have a look for Doyle's, Melbourne, or your local sailmaker. Give him a ring. Yeah, any follow-up questions, just email us. We're always available, and we'll speak to you in 2 months at the next one of these.